Great. Well, we're going to get started 5 minutes after the hour. Christy is going to be the main one presenting today. She leads our product team and has been building out a lot of new features based on requests that we receive from customers that are in the product every day, as well as just trends that we are seeing emerging in ways that we think we can help you guys improve your business even more. So you might know from the title, we're going to be all about Zapier today. And the gist of it, we were talking to Eric and he was like, this is what people want to know. You can connect almost anything with Followup CRM now. We've always had our strong integration partners with a lot of like accounting softwares, but now you dream it up, it might just be possible. So without any further ado, Christy, will you go ahead and walk us through all of these fun updates?
Yes, definitely. So Zapier is something we've had for a really long time, but we just are now, it's almost completely live. We're in the final testing phase of it. So probably like early next week, it'll be completely available. So I'm just going to go over some of the really great enhancements that we've added now. So like Sarah was saying, Zapier is like it's like the side bridge to everything else in the world, right? So we have our main integrations, and then Zapier is what else do you want to do? If Zapier can do it, now you can do it with Followup. So I will go ahead and bring up our Zapier page here. So there's a couple of different things. I'm gonna try to make this really practical as well. And Sarah, obviously jump in if anybody wants to ask a question in the middle. I welcome that. But I like it when things get really practical. So I will just kind of, do the top level as well as some of the highlighting the features that we have here now. So one of our most used scenarios for Zapier is Jotform. So Jotform is a way of getting leads into Followup. Where if you want to put a form on any other place, in the internet, and get your leads to automatically load, whether it's to create a project or to create a company. Jotform is typically the way that people will do that. So when you're building a Zap, and we can also include like support materials, Zapier side, like after this for you to dig deeper into the Zapier piece of things. So we're going to show you the Followup, like what we've made available for Followup. So if you are in this camp where you're like, okay, I really want a lead form out there. So then that would mean Jotform or whatever the integration is would be your very first piece of the Zap. Followup would then be the second. So what we have in here, and I'll just show you, when you're creating a Zap, we would add Followup as the next step. And then when you come into the setup part, you're going to need to use your API, which is in Followup. And I will give you just a little heads up that if your team has not used an API yet through Followup, all you need to do is send us an email or a chat and say, hey, can you enable this for our team? It takes literally 5 seconds. We go in, we make it available, and then you can come in here and do this. So you would just put in your Followup token for the API right here. And then you're going to choose your action event. So in this scenario that we're talking about, if we want a new lead to come in, let's just say that you want it to create a project. Okay. So I'm going to choose create project as my action event. And you can do it as company contact, as you can see. And I'm going to go over our new hot piece that I'm the most excited about at the end here, but we'll just talk about projects. So let's say you want that lead form to get filled out and automatically load into Followups. And then I'm going to put that as my action event. And then now I'm going to configure all of the pieces of this. So when it comes to configuring, when you come in here into the name, so this is obviously the name of the project, right? So what we see in here is all of the Followup project fields. You're going to see your custom fields in here. You'll see all of the standard default fields from the project page. So when I come in here and I want to automate this now, I want the form to automatically populate these fields, right? So you can do this a couple different ways. Probably what you're going to want to do is pull from the form, right? You want the information from the form to get into Followup. So when you come in here, there's a couple of different options. When you click the plus sign, In this page, it already loads the jot form for you, but sometimes you have to select one or the other. And so you might have to click a couple of times in different actions. But I'm going to come in here and maybe I want the name of my project to be the name of the person. Okay. I'm just making this up. It can be literally any of these other fields that you might want it to be. But when you select that, that's now going to pull it in for you. So this is all part of your own workflow, right? Little Zapier heads up, external ID doesn't matter. So you can put anything in this field and it's not going to mean anything. It's just a back end Zapier field. Doesn't do anything at all in follow-up, but it is required. So I just put a 1 in there. You can put a 0. You can type a bunch of numbers, doesn't matter. And then you would just leave the vendor part Zapier right here. Then it's literally just filling in all of the different fields. So address, clearly you would want it to be address, city would be city. And this is all based on the form you've created. So that I'm just using a simple example that we have on this side. So you would go down here, let's say, I don't want my sales status to be dependent upon anything in the form. Maybe you want it to always be, this is my new lead, right? So this is the example I was talking about. These dots right here, static means it's pulling from follow-up. So now when I come in here to sales status, I see all my sales statuses in my follow-up. However, like maybe you've added new ones, it's going to be in real time. You might need to refresh your results if you make any changes, but this is all of your follow-up information. So let's say I want to come in here and I want this to be always in the same sales status. So I'm going to click new lead for that one. Marketing status, industry, all of those mainstream fields, right? So this is a specific workflow that you're trying to build. Let's say it's your Zap, so you want it yourself to be the sales rep every time. It's all of the above. So I think you guys, this is pretty self-explanatory in that way, but I just want to make sure that I'm covering that. And as you can see, I'm scrolling down. There's custom fields in here now. None of this was available before. It was really pretty basic with like just the basic default information is what you could do. So now we have sales behaviors in here. Everything's in one place. So after I've filled everything in, I'm going to click continue. And then this is the test portion. I've already tested this, so it says retest here, but it would say test because you have to do a test initially. And this is how you'll know if it's working. So then you would just click the test. It's going to send something to your follow-up, and then you'll be able to verify that it's actually working. I'll actually do a live test in the next scenario, but I've said a lot of words. So any questions, anything you can think of, Sarah, that I need to say before we keep going forward?
That was a lot of good information. Like you said, people can always put it in the chat. And even though Christy's rolling through, she's excited to share this stuff, I'll be keeping eyes on the chat. And I know that she won't be offended if I interrupt her. So I will do that for you all. That makes sense. Like you said, whereas before we just had basic and now it's so easy to customize. And that's not like an intimidating thing where there are too many options. It's really just the powers in your hands.
Right, exactly. And just to be clear, because I meant to say this in the beginning, Zapier is for all of the things that are outside of follow-up that aren't part of our ERP integrations. And we've really tried to model this after automations. So we did a big overhaul of automations, and that was actually the last webinar I did with you, right? Was like our automations feature
a couple months ago.
So this is really similar to that. It's just in Zapier. So the automations within follow-up are all based on internal follow-up use. Sending emails is the most outside of it. So I want to be clear about that because that's really what like Zapier is fitting the niche of integrating outside of the system. But we've really tried to model it after that to keep things, really smooth and just user-friendly, that when you get into create project, you're going to see all your project fields. And
yeah, a term that you've used with me before, as somebody who doesn't have extensive background in software, whether you're used to working with construction or finance or whatever it is, she explained it to me as the bridge, right? Like you have this ecosystem, this city that is follow-up, and we're trying to take the best care of you as we can, but sometimes you need to go to another city. So Zapier is the bridge that helps you get there and back.
Yes, exactly. That's right. All right. We want to move on to the next one. Cool. So my most excited thing to roll out with this is we now have the ability to upload a file through a Zap. And that is one of the most requested things that we get with integrations, especially. And we have now been able to achieve this with Zapier. So many different use cases for this. I'm going to use one that's really simple just to wrap our minds around the concept. And then you all can kind of run wild with how does this apply? How can we begin to use this? So to be clear what I'm talking about, I'm just going to come over here to Followup real quick. We've got the documents section of the project, right? And a lot of times when people are wanting to integrate or wanting to automate something, it's like, how can I get something to show up in the documents folder without manually putting it there, right? So that's the use case that we're addressing here. So in Dropbox, again, this is totally just what are all of the integrations that Zapier can integrate with, right? I can't even think of all of the potentials of this. Your team will know what you're looking for in this way. So I've just integrated it with Dropbox, and the Dropbox trigger event is when a new file gets put into a folder. I want it to create a project in Followup and take that file and put it in there automatically. So you can do this for multiple triggers or multiple actions. It's not just creating a project. And I'll show that in just a second. But so here's a kind of a standard operating for this. When it comes to putting a file into a project in Followup, you need to make sure that you create the workflow that it's not going to run into any issues, because it's going to be based on the name of the project and the name of the file. That's what I recommend, is that you use the name of the file as your bridge between the two. So here, the way that I've set this one up is you come in here, and like I showed before with Jotform, you click this plus sign, and now it's going to show you all the fields that come with whatever you're integrating with. So Dropbox, it's going to show me the name of that file, the path name, the actual file, the share link, all of the different information about that integration. So I'm going to, in this example, I'm just going to use the file name as my project name. Okay. So what that means is if I were to run this Zap and put a file in a folder in Dropbox, it's going to create a project with the name of that file as the name. So an example I'm thinking of is a lot of times when people have like a PDF, whether it's a contract or it's a bid, an estimate, whatever it is, if you wanted to, this is just an example, you might want to name that file the name of the project, right? So if it's a new bid or it's a new estimate, you would name the file in whatever the folder is, whatever the integration is, that project name. So then when the Zap runs, it's going to pull from that. So then same thing with external ID, just put in a 1 or whatever you want to put in. Maybe you don't know all the information and you don't have to yet, right? You can leave all of these fields blank. But again, it's just the create project, all the fields. And now at the very bottom, we've got upload file. So this is where you're going to tie the file itself from Dropbox to the project. When you click the plus sign, it's just this one right here. It's just file. And this is going to be this pretty standardly the same with all of them, with any of the other integrations that involve files. But it can get really techy when you get in here. And this is why I appreciate stuff like this, where like somebody tells me exactly what I need to do. You know what I mean? So the file itself is what you're looking for. So now it's going to grab that and put it in this project. So now I'm going to hit continue. And here I'm going to test this. So I'm going to let you guys see what this really looks like. So when you do, and it's important to do this, but when you do test, it's going to use some old information to put it into Followup and give you a chance to see, oh, that really did work, right? Okay, so it says that it was sent 0 seconds ago. So I'm going to come over to my Followup and I'm just going to refresh the page. So now you can see this project, this new project. It's called Yay, because it's the name of my file. And then I didn't put any other extra information in it, but you can see there's a 1 right here in the documents. So we'll open this up, and then it's going to just go into your standard folder in here. And then we can open this up, and it's just a PDF that pulls over. So yay, it worked. The other really awesome part of putting in files that I'll just slide it in here since I'm already on the roll is that you don't just have to do this on a create project. You can also just upload a file. So this is really nice, right? Like we're dealing with documents all the time in our projects. We're trying to reduce paperwork all the time in our lives, right? So when you're just wanting to upload the file and you're not wanting it to create anything, you don't want to really touch anything else. You would select this for your action. And then over here, what you want to do is you're going to leave the project part blank. And this little paragraph tells you this because this is really specific. But you're just going to do the very same thing right here, where you select some criteria about this file, and it's going to look for that project name now. So instead of creating a new project, it's going to search for that project and put that file in it.
Great. You can add to the existing.
Yes. So you can add to the existing. And this is like a huge, like, I want to shout this from the rooftops because it's such a big breakthrough for us. Honestly, I get asked this question so many times. Can we transfer files? Can we transfer files? And I have to say no all the time. And now it's here. I get to say yes because it's like, finally, right? Like we're all looking for this to
it's going to make things so much more efficient. I mean, one
Yes.
of the things that we say so much in the initial like sales process when we're introducing somebody to Followup is we talk about duplicate entry, right? Because that's a big pain point. People not only want to get their time back, but they know that the more that you have to enter things in, the more likely there's room for human error to occur. And sometimes you pull in a document and it's V1 and they're already on V3, right? So this is going to make it so much more simplistic and easy for your team to get on the same page, literally.
Yes, literally. And then there's not all of this in between and wondering, and having to move things. That's the bane of all of our existence, right? Like, please automate everything. So I'll just show, this is really simple because it's just 2 things really that you're putting into this action step. So again, you have to just come in here and make sure that they select the file. And so I'll show you because I just tested this in the first one. So I sent the project and it named it by that file name. So now it should load this document one more time into this project. So we'll just open it up and make sure that it happened. And in the vein of everything we're talking about, it's like, this is where we get really creative with multiple zaps, right? So you can see here, there's a 2. So maybe you want to set up a Zap that's going to always upload a file. And in other instances, you're going to set one up where you want it to create the project and upload a file. I mean, there's just all these opportunities now, right? So yeah, that's the execution of that work.
Reducing some of that repetition when you like maybe had your mental list of every time I do this for a project, first you do it here, then you do it there, then you do it a third place. Now you can get them consolidated.
Yes. And so I went through all the detail with the action part, but obviously Dropbox can be the trigger, or sorry, Followup can be the trigger. If you want to start in Followup and then there's the certain criteria and then it sends to whatever the integration is, right? That's the flip side. And the really cool thing about Zapier is that you can add multiple steps. To be honest, I'm not the expert on that. I don't really know how all of that works, but it's really complex. And now Followup's just up to par with being part of the game and making your life easier with all the other integrations and organizations that you're working with. So yeah, that's kind of the rundown. I know I talk 90 miles an hour. And it's all the details, right? All the details are what gets us there. But any questions that people have, I am so happy to answer them if I know the answer. And I'm really excited to roll this out.
Yes, we have heard this across the board. It doesn't usually come up on those like initial onboarding calls, but it comes
Right.
up when people have been using the product for a few weeks and they just realize like, oh, this would make it a little bit easier on me. Or I know that when I roll this out to the rest of my team, they're going to wonder about
Yes.
how they can do this.
Right, right. Yeah. And that's so right. It's so, these are the types of things that we are not always thinking about up front. These are pain points. Like these are the things that when you get into the workflow that you're like, oh, I'd really like this to work. I'd really like these things to be possible. Right. And we're just trying to stay in that same flow of like, yes, we're getting there. Like we're measuring up to what the need
Mhm.
is. Right. And this right here, this was a big one. And so it's just really exciting to be able to provide it.
You had talked about Jot Forms and about Dropbox. Some other examples would be like Gravity Forms.
Mhm.
If for some reason part of your team is over there on HubSpot or you're running Facebook ads
Right,
and you want to get your leads in from that, maybe you're running like a promo for spring cleaning around the house. If you're
right,
more of like a landscape company, they might have those going on. So you want to make sure that it's all flowing into the same
right,
system.
right. And even like right here, just to pull this up, it says 7,000 plus apps. So, if it integrates with Zapier, it integrates with Followup now. And that's just the exciting part because, in our relationship with Zapier, we're actually enabling, all of this access. And we had it before, but this is really where it's, going to take off because it wasn't up to par yet. And so now it's definitely the functionality that it needs to be.
We do have one question that Chris submitted. He said, can we create a folder in SharePoint when a new project is added to follow up with that project name?
Mhm. That sounds like the standard example of what I'm talking about. And so as long as SharePoint, I'm not familiar with SharePoint and Zapier, but if SharePoint integrates with Zapier, then yes, you should be able to do that, which is really exciting.
Yeah, I know a lot of our Microsoft users have that for kind of their file sharing within their organization. So
Right.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to recap the basic steps that you went over. You talked about when you're building a Zap, you need to pick a trigger, you
Mhm.
need to choose an action, test it, activate it, and then are there any like common issues or troubleshooting that we should be aware of, Christy?
Yeah, the great thing about Zapier is that it's built in troubleshooting with this test step.
Hmm.
And so that is like your piece of like before you set your Zap to live and then you're like, why isn't it working? Right. So this is how we'll know. If there's errors, my first recommendation is always to check the API key. So that is here in the setup part when you're adding the account. So if I click to new account, this is what it would look like from the very beginning. Oh, it just set me up again to my old one, but it comes up as a page that asks you to add your API key. That's just a really easy thing, when you're doing copy paste and is it an old one? So that's really the biggest part, I think, of error. The second thing that I would say with that is if you get like a really weird error, it's usually a sign that something wasn't like a field wasn't inputted correctly for it to pull. So like I'll say for example, when it comes to a file, if when you're choosing like where is the file going to go or how am I going to locate this file? Let me get there on this page. So like right here, if you chose let's say the wrong field here, it's going to probably give you an error. So those are the two main things that I'm going to say is like check your API key and make sure that everything is working properly with that. And you might need to generate a new one. You can always generate as many as you want. But then the second piece is just double check these, like the configuring fields, because that's often where things break down. And then all of the signals of the code get, warped and they're like, oh, that didn't work. Something's wrong. Right. And we're like, oh my
Yeah.
God, technology. But yeah, it's just those basic things. Anything related to the follow-up trigger or action, chat us, write us, like send us an email. If it's like, let's say you're building a Zap and Dropbox is giving you a problem, we can't really help with that, right? Like that's their side of the
They have a chat too, so you can ask
right,
them.
right. Zapier, like what's Zapier, what's Followup, what's, SharePoint or whatever the integration is. But if it's directly this one, like Followup as the action, Followup as the trigger, we're the ones that are going to help you through that.
Yeah, we'll help you navigate for sure. I feel like we've used a lot of language that is maybe specific to admins and even like those SDRs in the sales process. But
Right.
the whole idea is like you're syncing your leads, your emails, your bid updates. This is going to help your team remember when to do those follow ups. We know that more follow ups lead to increasing close ratios. That's the end game, right? And if your sales team is on something like Slack or if they commonly use Google Sheets, those are things that have Zap integrations as well. So you can make sure that they're not like all siloed, like these two people were talking, like, no, put it out there for the whole group.
Right. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And that's what I love about this type. I mean, this again, like this is why I'm in product, but I love all of the technical details because that's where we go crazy, right? Like, oh my gosh, like we can talk the top level of how to do our business, right? But then it's like, but how do I create a Zap, right? Like that's where we get really frustrated a lot of times. And so when we have those technical details lined up, our lives are just so much easier. And that's the point of this
Yeah.
one.
You're going to be just adding grease to the pipeline. It's
Right.
going to be good.
Exactly. Yes.
Well, if we don't have any more questions, feel free while I'm doing some closing remarks to add those in the chat, and I will make sure we stop to answer them. But we have been doing these customer success webinars the third Thursday of every month. That's what you can look forward to. And we try to put the notification in the top banner when you log in to follow up so you know how to register. Or anytime you're talking with our team, they'll have the registration link as well. On a quarterly basis, we're kind of doing a big roll up talking about the large scale announcements with the product. So that's what you can look forward to in the month of April. And by then, we will know if all of your predictions for March Madness were right or not.
That's right.
And we can talk about that the next time around. But whether you were able to join us live today or you registered, we will be sure to send out this link. It'll be an email that comes through Zoom tomorrow. And then we always put these on our YouTube channel as well. That is a great resource if you want to go there and see other walkthrough videos, tutorials on how to do things. We know that you can read them on our site as well. Like we have blog formats and help articles, but sometimes seeing it just helps it click in a different way. Thank you so much for joining us, Christy. Thank you for the walkthrough and for all the work you do for this product every day. It's helping lots of people all over the country.
Yeah. It's great to be on.
Bye, everyone.